Failure is painful. Delay is painful. But sometimes the most painful thing is when God seems silent through it all. That was what I went through while pursuing my PhD in economics in the US. What started out as a promising academic path slowly became a 10.5-year struggle. At the very beginning, I failed the preliminary math exam. Then I failed the PhD qualifying exam twice. I was left with two choices: quit or to transfer to another school. I chose to transfer. But the price was starting over, retaking core courses, and taking the qualifying exam again. Research was already a nightmare for me. To make matters worse, in my 5th year, I had to change my dissertation advisor under unavoidable circumstances. My new advisor did not seem very willing to guide me. That made my research even harder. Writing in English was another form of torture for me. In fact, that almost became the last straw. By that time, I had a nickname in graduate school, the PhD student with awful luck. Deep down, I was no longer struggling with my studies. I was struggling with God. Sometimes I felt angry with him. I questioned him. I challenged him. I even thought seriously about quitting both my PhD and my faith. But at the same time, I was in awe of him. The more I prayed, the less progress I seemed to make. That left me confused. Sometimes I even stopped praying for my research, half afraid that the more I prayed, the worse it would get, and half hoping that if I left it alone, God might somehow have mercy on it. But even then, God still seemed silent. So I asked myself, which choice would cost me more, quitting or continuing? If I gave up my PhD, all these years of effort would be wasted, and I would lose the little confidence I had left. If I gave up my faith, I would be walking away from the principles and the values that had shaped my life. Somehow, giving up felt more costly than holding on. So I made up my mind. I choose to keep going with my PhD and with my faith. As I near the end of my PhD journey, God used two things to show me He knew what I had been through, and He was pleased I had held on. The first was my final defense. A final defense is the last major hurdle before the PhD is granted. The moment your committee challenges your dissertation and you are expected to defend it. So I was thinking I was walking into a battle. Instead, my final defense was not that at all. It's more like a roundtable conversation. A professor would raise a question, another professor would answer it. I hardly needed to defend myself. Most of the time, I was simply walking the committee through my research and making sure everybody was on the same page. The whole thing was so unexpectedly peaceful that I knew it was finished. The second was an email from one of my committee members, a British professor. After my final defense, he wrote to tell me that my writing was articulate. He was wondering who had proofread my dissertation. He wanted to recommend that person to his foreign students. When I read that email, I cried. I had no proofreader. I wrote the entire dissertation on my own. I used to carry 4 dictionaries and a laptop every day, moving from place to place to just get my writing done. Whenever anxiety hit, I had to move again. Only God knew how painful that writing process had been for me. Coming from the British professor, that compliment meant even more. Through that email, I felt God saying, I have been with you all along. Looking back, I'm grateful that I neither gave up on myself nor walked away from God. I learned that God may not respond right away, but He will answer in His time and in His way. I also learned that God cares more about how I walk through the process with Him than about how well I perform and how it turns out. So, still, I will believe. Still, I will hold on. Still, I will give thanks. And still, I will worship Him. Thank you.